Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So before I get started with this video, I wanted to say a few things. So first, I've noticed that I gained like 200 subscribers over the past like 3 days, which I'm so like, oh my God, I just see my subscriber count going up and up. So to all of my new subscribers, hi, hello, how are you doing? Welcome to the VBX Familia. I'm sure most of you probably came from my historical Black Latinas video, which that video is at like 16 or 17,000 views right now, which I was totally not expecting whatsoever. So thank you to all of you for watching that video, for those of you that did watch it. And I know I also gained a few from the video I did on the protest going on in the DR. So thank you to you guys as well. Now, getting on with the topic of the video, as many of you know, Dominican independence is on February 27th. So, I first wanted to give a shout out to another YouTuber. The name of his channel is It's J-Rod. A lot of you guys know him, but he recently did a video kind of talking about the historical beef between DR and Haiti. And, I had been talking to him about it because I was hesitant, honestly, to make a video talking about this or our Independence Day because, it is a little bit of a touchy subject considering who we are celebrating our independence from. And I just felt like I didn't know how I could speak on this without it coming off as biased because I am Dominican. But, watching his video kind of inspired me to just do it, so shout out to you. And yeah, I just kind of felt like, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence as a Dominican YouTuber if I didn't talk about it. So here we are. Okay. So in regards to Dominican independence, I've noticed over the past few years a slightly increasing number of Dominicans online saying that they would no longer be celebrating Dominican independence because of the anti-Haitian rhetoric that they feel comes along with it. Which, I get it, I understand. Like I usually say, I'm not here to tell nobody how to feel, how they should think about something. For those Dominicans that don't want to celebrate our Independence Day anymore, that is entirely their choice. That is their right to feel however they want to feel. It is what it is. I guess that I am just more of the belief that our Independence Day, at the end of the day, it is a pivotal point in our history that I do feel deserves recognition. Now, as far as the anti-Haitian rhetoric that sometimes comes with it, honestly, for the most part, throughout most of my life, to be completely honest, I didn't even know our independence was from Haiti until literally like 4 years ago. I know that's terrible of me. I know Dominicans don't cancel me, but I seriously, for the longest time, thought our Independence Day, well, this one was from Spain because that is just what made logical sense to me because we were colonized by Spain. So I figured, oh, our Independence Day was from them. But that also goes to show how much like Haiti was removed from the equation in many times. When I heard about our Independence Day or when people were celebrating it, it was always just a celebration of Dominican culture. Like I never heard the anti-Haitian stuff that came with it. But that doesn't mean, that it didn't exist. I guess I just didn't hear it. But again, I feel like, it is something worth recognizing. But see, my whole thing though, is if we as Dominicans, if we're not in the present day hating on the Spaniards for having colonized us and for having, treated our Taino ancestors the way that they did, if we're not hating on the Spaniards in the present day for having enslaved our African ancestors, then why am I going to sit here and hate on Haitians for something that happened 200 years ago? Like that's more my mindset. Like I don't have any reason to hate on Haitians now for things that they had absolutely nothing to do with. Which shout out to my Haitian subscribers out there. I know there's a few of you out there, so shout out to you guys. So, it's history. Like I've said before, I feel like when it comes to history, we just have to keep an objective mind and be able to look at things from multiple sides, because like I've also said before, history usually is never just black and white. So with that, I'll now get on to the actual history here. So of course I have my notes here, and I'm just going to kind of like read through it and talk to you guys about Dominican independence. So DR is one of 3 countries throughout Latin America that celebrates its independence from a neighboring country. Okay, Uruguay celebrates its independence from Brazil. Panama celebrates its independence from Colombia, and then of course DR celebrates its independence from Haiti. Now, of course, DR and Panama also have days in which they technically celebrate their independence from Spain. I'm assuming Uruguay does as well, but I'm not entirely sure. So before I get on to the actual like fight for independence from Haiti, I wanted to give like a little background history, because DR has literally, or the colony of Santo Domingo, has literally been tossed around between so many different people. So as we all know, of course, DR was colonized by the Spanish from the very end of the 1400s up until the end of the 1700s, basically. So 300 years, it was just straight Spanish rule. Now, in 1795, we actually come into a span of 14 years in which Santo Domingo was actually ruled by the French, okay? So Santo Domingo was ceded to France in 1795. It was then invaded by Haitians in 1805. In October 1808, the landowner Juan Sanchez Ramirez began a rebellion against the French colonial government in Santo Domingo, and the insurgents were aided by Puerto Rico and British Jamaica. Santo Domingo was yet again invaded by the British in 1809, who ejected the French and returned Santo Domingo to the Spaniards in 1809. Okay, so the Spaniards not only tried to reestablish slavery in Santo Domingo after it had been abolished in 1801, but many of them also mounted expeditions into Haiti to capture Black people and enslave them as well. Okay, so again, just within that 14 years, you see that the power of Santo Domingo was bounced around from the French, the Haitians, the British, and then ultimately back to the Spanish. Okay, so after this period, we come into the period which is known as España Boba, which lasted from 1809 to 1821. So at the beginning of that time, the colony of Santo Domingo, which had once been the headquarters of Spanish rule in the New World, basically was in its worst decline. Okay, so Spain during this time, they were also involved in the Peninsular War in Europe, which I believe was with France, which, side note, Spain and France have always been at each other's necks. I mean, it was the same thing within Hispaniola. They were constantly fighting. And so there was also the Peninsular War going on in Europe, as well as various wars happening within Latin America to maintain control of the American mainland. Okay, so at this point, the population of the colony of Santo Domingo was approximately 80,000, with the vast majority being of European descent and mulattoes, or mixed people. So Santo Domingo's plantation economy, it never truly flourished, and because of this, the Black slave population had been significantly lower than that of neighboring Saint-Domingue, which was nearing 1 million slaves before the Haitian Revolution. So during this time of España Boba, most of the farming at that time was solely for subsistence. There was little like coin or money on the island. And once political stability returned to Spain in 1814, its focus was more on the island of Cuba, because at that point, the sugar industry was like really booming in Cuba after, Haiti had left the sugar market, after the revolution. And so most of Spain's attention was on Cuba, not Santo Domingo. And so because of this lack of interest in Santo Domingo, that also contributed towards this, economic decline. So after this, now we move into the very, very short-lived time period in which the colony became Spanish Haiti. So during this time, again, the Spanish crown, they had little to no influence in the colony of Santo Domingo. And on November 9th, 1821, the former Captain General in charge of the colony, Jose Núñez de Cáceres, he who had been influenced by all of the revolutions that were going on around him, he finally decided to overthrow the Spanish government and declared independence from the Spanish crown, and thus the short-lived nation of Spanish Haiti was founded. Okay, so that was the name that they gave the Spanish side. They called it Spanish Haiti. So on December 1st, 1821, a constitutive act was ordered to petition the union of Spanish Haiti with Gran Colombia. However, the states of the Republic of Spanish Haiti was not supported by the population of slaves and servants who were very wary of the rule of pure whites, and they actually preferred to unite with the Haitians. Mainly because they had abolished slavery, so they figure they'd rather be ruled by Haiti, and be free than potentially continue to be enslaved, by this rule being under Gran Colombia. Okay, so again, this time period, the Spanish Haiti, that only lasted 2 months. Okay, so we now go into the period of unification, which began in 1822. So a group of politicians and military officials among the Dominican elites had expressed interest in basically uniting the entire island. So there were actually some Dominicans that were for the unification of the island, because they were basically looking for political stability and support under Haiti, because at that time they were still seen as having a great deal of wealth and power. So Haiti's president, Jean-Pierre Boyer, he promised his full protection and support to the frontier government, and thus he entered into the country with around 10,000 soldiers. And on February 1822, Boyer formally entered Santo Domingo, where he was met actually with some enthusiasm, and he was received by Núñez de Cáceres, who offered him the keys of the palace, or the presidential palace. Now, keep in mind, at this time, the Dominicans were unaware that Boyer had made a concession with the French, and that he had agreed to pay France for the lost territory of Haiti, which the Dominicans would later end up feeling the brunt of. So when it comes to this period of unification, I will first start out with giving the plus and all this, or the pro. Okay, so the biggest positive thing that came from the unification of the islands was that the occupation effectively eliminated slavery once and for all. They instated a constitution modeled after the United States Constitution throughout the island. Now, how I kind of previously mentioned, this was now the second time that slavery in Santo Domingo had been abolished. In 1801, Louverture abolished slavery in Santo Domingo, freeing around 40,000 slaves. And this also prompted much of the elites on the Spanish side of the island to flee to Cuba and Puerto Rico, where slavery was still going. However, slavery had been reestablished in 1809 when the Spanish recovered the area. So, by 1822, they abolished it once and for all. And actually, we just had our anniversary of the abolition of slavery in DR like a week or two ago, so not that long ago. Okay, so that was the pro. Now, on to the cons. Okay, so eventually the Haitian government became extremely unpopular throughout the country, and in reality in Haiti too. And the Dominican population, they grew increasingly impatient with what they considered to be Haiti's poor management and perceived incompetence, and the heavy taxation that was imposed on their side. Okay, the country was hit with a severe economic crisis after having to pay, this huge like colonial tax or whatever to France, and that would give rise to a lot of anti-Haitian plots. Okay, so, and I think that's something people don't really realize. Like, it wasn't just Haiti at that time that was paying the French. Like, the Dominicans were also being heavily taxed in order to be able to pay France back. So also during this time, the use of the French language over the Spanish was enforced. The army closed down the Universidad Santo Tomás de Aquino, which is, I think, the UAS today. In addition, the Haitian army confiscated all church lands and property and imposed a mandatory military service. So, this did create a difficult time for the Dominicans. It created many cultural conflicts, and when it came to language, because, they were now being forced to speak French. race, because you had one population that was overwhelmingly Black, and then another population in which, the racial demographic was quite different. And then, religion, because by this time, the overwhelming majority of the Spanish colony, they were Catholic, including the Black people. And just certain traditions between the Dominicans and the Haitians that kind of clashed. So this was kind of how many Dominicans started to develop a sort of resentment towards the Haitians, who they began to see as oppressors. Also, attempts to redistribute land conflicted with the system of communal land tenure, which they called terrenos comuneros. Okay, so it was land shared among people, which had arisen due to the ranching economy. You guys have heard me say before that Santo Domingo, while a colony, they weren't really a plantation-based economy. They were a cattle ranching-based economy or society. Okay, and newly emancipated slaves, they resented being forced to grow cash crops under Boyer's Code Rural, or Code Rural. So this was done during Boyer's presidency, like in an attempt to halt the downward trend of the economy. So basically, under this code, it basically tied the peasant laborers to plantation land by denying them the right to leave the land or enter the towns or to start farms or shops of their own, and by creating a rural constabulary to enforce the code. So it was almost like being enslaved again, like another form of slavery. And so that is where the Black Dominicans in particular, that is where they began to more so feel this resentment, or they started to look at the Haitians kind of sideways. And so at this point, their shared race no longer really mattered, if that makes sense. And then, so that was what was affecting the poor people. And then on the other end, Haiti's constitution forbade whites from owning land, and the major Dominican landowning families, they were forcibly deprived of their properties. Many of the white elites in Santo Domingo, they didn't even consider owning slaves due to the economic crisis, that Santo Domingo had faced previously. But for those landowners that did still want slavery and they wanted to own slaves, they ended up, again, migrating to other colonies like Cuba, Puerto Rico, or Gran Colombia. However, apart from them, though, many landowning families did stay on the island, with a heavy concentration of landowners settling in the Cibao region. So at the same time, so while all of this is going on the Spanish side, there was also a lot of things going on the Haitian side. And again, this is while the whole island is still unified. So in Haiti, the gap between the Black peasants in the countryside and the mulattoes of the towns grew during Boyer's presidency. And so the corruption of Boyer's rule and the stagnation of the economy finally led to a rebellion in 1843 that forced Boyer to flee to Jamaica and then to Paris. So as you guys can see, everyone throughout the island was facing, the effects of Boyer's presidency. It wasn't just the Dominicans. I mean, the Haitians were feeling it as well. So now we move on to our founding father, Juan Pablo Duarte, and the fight for Dominican independence. So in 1838, Juan Pablo Duarte, who was an educated nationalist, founded a resistance movement called La Trinitaria, or the Trinity, along with Matias Ramon Mella and Francisco del Rosario Sanchez. So just to give you guys a little background on Duarte, he was a writer, an activist, a poet, a military leader, and a liberal politician who was the foremost of the founding fathers. Duarte is considered to most people a hero and a revolutionary visionary in the modern, day Dominican Republic. So his liberal views actually made him a very controversial figure at the time, especially among the conservative and powerful Dominicans of the time. And he was exiled on numerous occasions after the founding of the new nation. His liberal views went against the conservative elites who sought for heavy-handed control of the nation, and who wanted to basically maintain the traditional regionalisms of the past, okay? Duarte had strong disagreements with the Republic's first president, Pedro Santana. As Santana, he was basically like a tyrannical type of figure. And ultimately, Duarte would spend many years away from DR, which is very unfortunate. And he basically would die in exile, which made him a political martyr in the eyes of subsequent generations, okay? So, back to the Trinitarios. So, they were called that because the original 9 members had organized themselves into groups of 3. So, each group went on to recruit as separate organizations, maintaining strict secrecy, okay, with little or no contact among themselves in order to minimize the possibility of being detected by the Haitian authorities. So many recruits quickly came to the group, but it was discovered and they were forced to change its name to La Filantropica. And they continued with their plans, to get the Haitians out. So a quick side note, I wanted to share with you guys a little bit of Duarte's own words. Now, although they were fighting to get the Haitians out of power, Duarte actually didn't hate the Haitians. And so I just wanted to give you something that he himself said. Of course, this is translated from Spanish. So this is what he said. I admire the Haitian people from the moment when, going through the pages of their history, I found them fighting desperately against excessively superior powers, and I see how they defeat them and how they emerged from the sad condition of a slave to become a free and independent nation. I recognize it as the holder of 2 eminent virtues, the love of freedom and courage. He later went on to say, if the Spaniards had their Spanish monarchy and the French theirs, if even the Haitians have constituted the Haitian Republic, why should Dominicans have to be subdued, already to France, already to Spain, and now to the Haitians themselves, without thinking of becoming like the others? No, 1,000 times. No more domination. Long live the Dominican Republic. So I think you can see from there, it wasn't so much a issue of hate. I mean, I think the country had already been through so much economically, and they had reached such a low that the Dominicans felt like, it's time for us to be our own people. I mean, if everybody else has their they have their crown, the Europeans, the Haitians have their own republic, they have their own country, so why can't we have ours? Okay. So in 1843, the revolution made a breakthrough. They worked with a liberal Haitian party that overthrew President Jean-Pierre Bouyer. So again, we see here that the Haitians and the Dominicans actually came together to overthrow Bouyer. So the Trinitarios' work in the overthrow gained the attention of Bouyer's replacement, Charles Riviere Herard. I'm probably saying that wrong. So Riviere Herard imprisoned some of the Trinitarios, and he forced Duarte to leave the island. After subduing the Dominicans, Herard, who himself was a mulatto, faced a rebellion by blacks back in Haiti. He had formed 2 regiments composed of Dominicans from Santo Domingo, and he used them to basically suppress the uprising in Haiti. Okay. So on February 27th, 1844, the surviving members of La Trinitaria declared independence from Haiti. They were backed by Pedro Santana, who was a wealthy cattle rancher from El Seibo, who became general of the army of the new republic. DR's first constitution was adopted on November 6, 1844, and was modeled after the U.S. Constitution. On March 14th, Duarte finally returned after recovering from an illness that he had, and he was greeted in celebration. In early July 1844, Duarte was urged by his followers to take the title of President of the Republic, and Duarte agreed, but only if free elections were arranged. So as you all can see, Duarte was truly a believer in democracy, true democracy. However, Santana's forces took Santo Domingo on July 12, 1844, and they declared Santana ruler of the Dominican Republic, and Santana then put Mella, Duarte, and Sanchez in jail, which is a damn shame, okay? So, that is how DR basically became its own independence nation. Now, following that, they did face a couple invasions from the Haitians again. They basically had to fight a series of attempted invasions from 1844 to 1856. The Haitian soldiers made incessant attacks to try to regain control of the territory, but these efforts were to no avail as the Dominicans basically won every battle. On March 19th, 1844, the Haitian army, under the personal command of President Herard, invaded the eastern province from the north and progressed as far as Santiago, but was soon forced to withdraw after suffering disproportionate losses. The Haitians again invaded in 1849 after France recognized the Dominican Republic as an independent nation, but the Dominicans again succeeded in defeating the Haitian army, and then once again in 1855, they invaded again, but its forces were repulsed at the bloodiest clashes in the history of the Dominican-Haitian Wars, which were the Battle of Saint Thomé in December 1855 and the Battle of Sabana Larga in January 1856. Okay. Now, of course, this didn't end the continued struggles and shifts of power. You then had Santana, who ceded DR back to Spain, which then led to the Restoration War, which happened in the 1860s. And then when you go into the 20th century, you had invasions from the United States, which led to the revolution eventually in 1965, both of which I will do videos for when the time comes, when their anniversaries come up. So DR has been through quite a lot in its history, quite a lot. So, you know, when it comes to the relationship between Dominicans and Haitians, of course, we do have a very strained past. And then when you bring in, you know, Trujillo and the Parsi massacre and this and that, it's just a hot ass mess, okay? But with all that being said, you know, I said this in a video before, and you know, when I think of DR and Haiti, I think of like two brothers that basically have this intense love-hate relationship. You know, they're like two brothers that don't always get along, and you know, they're forced to live in the same house, but you know, when shit gets real, they do help each other out. You know, as much clashes as we've had, there are moments in which we have been able to come together and fight towards a common goal. You know, there were many Haitians that fought alongside DR during the Restoration War. There were also many Haitians that fought alongside Dominicans during the U.S. invasion of the 1960s. And then when you look at, like, for example, the earthquake that happened in Haiti, you know, who was among the first people to aid them? You know, it was DR. You know, DR has always, you know, aided and helped Haiti in many ways as well. Despite all the current day craziness that is happening, you know, when it comes to certain situations, you know, we have helped each other out. So, you know, when it comes to the current day issues between us, you know, that's a whole nother monster I'm not even going to touch right now. But it's just crazy to see, and it's kind of sad to see just both countries right now are just protesting. I mean, I guess in a way it's a good thing too, but it's like, you know, the people on both ends, you know, they're crying out. They're over it. They're over the injustices that they're facing, the corrupt governments, the foreign intervention. But you know, if there's one thing that I can say about both Dominicans and Haitians, is that they are a determined people, and as crappy as the situations around them may be, they make do what they have and they live their lives, you know. So big shout out to all my Dominicans out there, and shout out to the Haitians as well. You know, I know I can't speak for all Dominicans, but you know, there's no hate over here. You know, I don't feel any animosity or whatever towards you guys. So yeah. So that was the end of this video, guys. I didn't expect for it to be 30 minutes long, but you guys, can we please keep the comment section? Can we keep it nice, y'all? Like, can we not turn this into an anti-Haitian or anti-Dominican thing? Okay, because some of y'all mother effers out there, y'all not even subscribed to my channel. I don't think y'all subscribe. Y'all love to come onto my channel and start talking shit. All right, so can we not have that today, please? Can we not? Anyway, that was it for this video. Give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments, respectful comments, down below. And I'll check you guys next time. Bye.